never come back. Because in the morning, when you have the dream in the night, you feel safe. You dreaming about your home, about your previous life. But every time when you wake up, every time you feel the same because you understand it will never come back. On her birthday, when I go to sleep, I just say to God, if you love me, if you still here with me, help me to find her body because I can't live with this. And on this day, when I wake up, some person they sent me a video with her on the street. It was so awful because it was my mom, but it was not my mom.
And I mean, what happened in Bucha, your mother, one of the victims, is this something that you want to get justice for what happened to her? Is that something you're thinking about?
I think evil came to your house, and I think Bucha, it was so awful because every people, they look TV, they read the article about Bucha, but they can put off this article, they can switch off the TV, and after they forget about this. And every people who lost someone on the Bucha, they don't think about politics. They don't think about the game, about money, about everything. They just need to understand what they do wrong in this life, that they lost everything.
How would you like people to remember your mother?
Love like in the picture, you always see these hearts on the nails. And I think it's really important to understand that my mom loves so much, that it's so powerful in her heart that she can give you the power for live, even if you don't want to live. So if you have a problem in your life, if you don't know what to do, just listen to your heart and you have this power.
That was Olya Shechiruk, whose mother was killed by the Russian military in Bucha last year. She was speaking to Newshour's James Kumarasamy. And if you go to the Newshour website, you can hear the interview with Anna, whose 4-year-old son Sasha was killed in the first months of the war. You can also find a rare conversation with 2 Russian men who fled conscription and say they'll do the same again if the authorities ask them to fight. And a reminder that you can listen to NewsHour whenever you like. We got 2 editions a day. You can find the latest online at bbcworldservice.com. Better still, sign up for our free download. Just search for BBC NewsHour podcast.
Distribution of the BBC NewsHour in the U.S. is supported by BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 25,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public. And Progressive commercial insurance protects small businesses. From retailers to tradespeople, Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
Programming is supported by the McKnight Foundation, advancing a more just, creative, and abundant future where people and planet thrive. Online at mcknight.org.
Later in All Things Considered, the governor just signed into law a 100% carbon-free standard. What will it mean for small municipal and cooperative utilities? I'm Tom Cramp. That story, with weekend weather, and all the news right here starting at 3.
Right now, 9 degrees in the Twin Cities, -6 in Moorhead. This is NPR News.
Coming up on NewsHour in the next 30 minutes, Kenya's UN ambassador tells us why his government condemns Russia's invasion of Ukraine as much as it did a year ago. Up we look at Russia's growing influence in the rest of Africa. And who are the Lion's Den Palestinian militia, which Israeli forces attacked this week in the West Bank city of Nablus? That's after the latest news.
Lal, Snow, Minnesota, Akara Tulave. Look how it looks like in the snow. The snow in Minnesota. Wow.
We're going to go from where Amy is right now, Fargo-Moorhead, over to Bemidji. Bemidji is hosting the Indigenous Winter Games this weekend. In preparation, the community nonprofit Manitou Ogedigan hosted a 4-day snow snake making workshop. Matthew Holding Eagle III reports participants also learned the sport's spiritual importance.
Just as football needs a football to be played, snow snake players need a snow snake. Inside the Rail River School, lots of people are hard at work scraping and sanding long pieces of wood into snow snakes ready to be launched in competition. Keeping warm by a large furnace in the corner of the room, Frank Sprague and Kevin Finney of Great Lakes Lifeways Institute in Michigan explain the finer points of their construction. Some non-Indigenous people may recognize snow snake from their days as a Boy Scout. However, for Indigenous nations, the game isn't only a sport. It has great cultural significance. That's where Sprague, a Gun Lake Potawatomi elder, comes in.
For me, it's a sense of community, and it's a sense of working with the spirit and doing things in a good way.
Snow snakes range anywhere from 2.5 to 6.5 feet long. They can be fashioned from many different types of wood. The actual game can take different forms. Sometimes snow snakes are thrown for accuracy. Sometimes they're thrown for distance. The playing field is a track leveled by pulling a log across it.
The farthest thing that's ever been thrown by a person is a snow snake in the world.
For this workshop, Sprague and Finney brought a rack of pre-cut wood with them. Elders got first choice.
That's what you want, Ty? Okay. So the rest...
To demonstrate an ideal snow snake design, Finney held up a finished example, drawing attention to its center.
If we actually set this down on a really flat surface, it would only touch in a little area of about maybe 6-8 inches right here. That's ideal.
Finney says one of the rules of carving is that you can take it off, but you can't put it back on.
We're putting life into these snow snakes, you know, and it's a part of us. And so we do these things in a good way, and we try to be in a good mind when we work with our snow snakes and we work with our communities.
Bob Shimmick has been making snow snakes for 30 years. He's also been telling their origin story. He says Awanikwe, or Fog Woman, brought snow snake to the Anishinaabe people when they were in need of help. Some say it occurred on the north shore of Lake Superior. Others say it occurred on Red Lake. He says the legend of Fog Woman talks about life being out of balance, with people putting their own interests above that of their families and communities. And it talks about restoring that balance.
For us around here, you know, it has to do with, you know, what some call the rolling hoop. Some would describe it as the circle of life.
Shimmick says Fog Woman told the people to go out into the bush when the leaves had fallen from the trees with their Indian tobacco. She said they would be guided by the little people to a stick or sapling, which they would cut and take back with them. Then they were to peel the bark, smooth out the stick, and decorate it. Then, wait for the snow. Shimmick says Fog Woman instructed the Anishinaabe to fashion a hoop and perform a ceremony with offerings of food and tobacco.
And you ask permission for these Gnabik, these Guniganabik, these snow snakes, to come out and play in the snow.
And then they were to play a game where they attempt to slide their snow snake through the hoop. In so doing, Chiganabek, a spirit Fog Woman brought with her, would be happy. According to the legend, Chiganabek is a giant snake that lives under all of the villages.
And when the Anishinaabe play these games, that giant Gnabik will make sure we have plenty in the up and coming spring, summer, and fall harvest of all the different gifts, you know, our Indian foods, our medicines, our wild game, our meat, our furs, hides, all these different things will be there in abundance for us.
And that tradition will be part of the Indigenous Winter Games throughout the weekend near Paul Bunyan Park in Bemidji. There will be several types of snow snake events with prizes, food, and activities for all ages. For many of the workshop participants, this will be the first time they get to compete with their own personal snow snaking. The elders say if the exuberance from the workshop carries over to the games, Chiganabek will be quite happy. I'm Matthew Holding Eagle III, Bemidji.
photos, by the way, mprnews.org. It's chilly. Earlier this morning, temperatures 24 degrees in Halleck, 25 in Hibbing, that's below zero. Some pretty impressively cold wind chills, too, around 40 below in portions of northern Minnesota. Wind chill advisories are up for the state through this morning. And then today, a little chilly, but we warm up this weekend. Temperatures will rebound into the mid-20s and 30s before another storm system Sunday night into Monday. Business News next.
What would you do with the money if you really scored in the fossil fuel business?
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Fidelity. A dedicated Fidelity advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. And by the Slowdown Podcast. Join award-winning poet Major Jackson, the newest host of The Slowdown, for a hand-picked poem and a moment of reflection every weekday.
I'm David Brancaccio. First, Russia's war on Ukraine is now a year old, and the U.S. and allies are announcing new sanctions meant to punish Russia and curb its military capabilities. Marketplace's Nova Safos following this.
The U.S. and its allies are targeting more individuals, such as Matthias Warnig, a German businessman who is the head of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and considered a friend of Vladimir Putin, as well as entities that are important to Russia's economy, including a dozen Russian financial institutions. The U.S. is also increasing tariffs on more than 100 Russian metals, minerals, and chemical products, and targeting imports of Russian aluminum. The White House is coordinating these actions with G7 allies, including Britain, which announced, among other things, import bans on Russian iron and steel goods. China, on the other hand, today called for an end to what it called unilateral sanctions on Russia. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
Ukraine calculates its economic activity fell by 30% in 2022. As for the condition of Russia's economy a year on, here's my Marketplace colleague, the BBC's Leanna Byrne.
Countries across the world were quick to hit Russia with sanctions after invading Ukraine. But have these sanctions hurt Russia's economy? Dr. Maria Shigina is a senior research fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies in Germany. She told me that there are plenty of countries still trading with Russia.
We need to look at the design of sanctions. For some reason, with sanctions, people assume that we impose measures on the target, then no trade is no longer possible. But that's only the case of a full embargo. Russia is not...
ago, but it's stuck by Moscow. It hasn't condemned the invasion. Trade with Russia, for instance, has risen sharply over the course of the war. So, this potential of China changing tacks really and providing lethal support would be a pretty big new irritant in U.S.-China relations and in China's relations with the EU. I will note, though, that when asked about it, China's foreign ministry says China wants peace. It accuses the U.S. of spreading false news and of fanning the flames of conflict.
By The Daily at 6:30, The World at 7, and at 8, a special hosted by NPR's Leila Fable.
This is Julian Marshall with NewsHour, live from the BBC in London. Well, this week we've been hearing from people who've lost friends and families in the year-long war in Ukraine. The 4-year-old boy who drowned as his family tried to escape the fighting in northern Ukraine. The Russian fashion journalist who died covering the war. The student of history killed in battle.